future in the past. And then we're going to have a discussion about everything that I show you. And then we're going to get into the mechanics of zine making and then the actual crafting in earnest. So unfortunately, we probably don't have the time today for you to finish your zines, but I'm hoping that some of you will continue to work on them and hopefully submit them to volume one of Rad Yiddish's zine, Imagining Queer Lefty Rad Futures. So that's the hope. Um, yeah, and I also just want to encourage people, feel free to interrupt me. I really do want this workshop to be as interactive as possible. I'm hoping not to sort of talk at you for a long time, but we'll see what happens. I think my slideshow is pretty ambitious. Um, yeah, so I think I'll just get into it. I'm gonna share my slideshow with you now and just let me know if it is working. Okay, yeah, this guy. Okay. Can folks see this? Yay. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to start this workshop with the classic next year in dot dot dot. So of course, as many of us know, in the Passover Seder, we often say next year in Jerusalem. For years, there have been many sort of subversions of this phrase. And I wanted us to think about it as sort of its own Jewish technology in terms of imagining a different future, and to not only imagine Yiddish futures in terms of space and place, although we should imagine that too, and how we are tied to space and place, but also relationally to our communities, to a state of being. So here I have my own sort of queering of next year in, to, from, against, amid, alongside, below, beneath, beyond, etc. So that's sort of how I'm framing this whole thing. Can you see me turn the slide? Okay, great. So yes, as it says here, to talk about Yiddish futures now, we have to contend with the Yiddish futurism of the past. Um, Now, maybe when you signed up for this workshop, you weren't expecting a crash course in Yiddish futurism per se, but I think it's important to look at it so that we can just be conscious of what that looked like in the past as we try or attempt to imagine different futures now. So a lot of the Yiddish futurism that was happening around the turn of the century um, was rooted in Zionist utopianism. So the idea that the future of the Jews is in a utopian version of the land of Israel. Now, of course, we'll get into this a little bit later. Of course, this is one particular vision, but in terms of sort of Yiddish futurism, uh, you know, I guess explicit futurism versus other ideas of the future, most of it was Zionist. And this is a really crash course. This is an incomplete history. I'm just giving you a taste here. So I just want to make sure you know that as well. But two of the books, two of the Zionist futurist utopian books that were written and that are often referenced alongside each other are one of the founders of Zionism, Theodor Herzl's Alt Nieuwland, Old New Land, that was written in 1903. This book imagined a future in which Jews lived in the land of Israel. In this book, actually, the vision is peaceful between Palestinians and Jews and other minorities in this land. There's no army, very different to the reality we see now. However, outside of this book, Herzl did advocate for the deportation of Palestinians in order for Jews to live on that land. So there are certainly darker undertones that exist beyond the actual book. The other book that's often referenced alongside this is Elhanan Leib Levinsky's Journey to the Land of Israel in the year 5800 in the Hebrew calendar, and in the Gregorian calendar 2040, so only 16 years from now. And it was written in 1892. And in the book, there's a couple, they're Jewish, they go on honeymoon to the land of Israel. And this land of Israel is also peaceful. Instead of temples, there are basically world class science centers. It's a paragon of technology. It's completely self-sustaining. And it very much sort of looks like a Western European state, similar to sort of what Theodore Herzl's vision was for Israel, which was the idea that it would be sort of a Berlin of the Middle East. And yeah, a major problem with this work is that uh, basically Palestinians are nowhere to be found, and the myth of sort of the land being empty or sort of nothing happening with it is reinscribed in this book, and the idea that Jews came to the land and they made it flourish. Yes, so that's a super crash course in some of the roots of Zionist Yiddish futurism. So here we have, whoops, we have utopias being imagined for some, while, as we can see in our current present, dystopia for others. So we have two books here. This is a little bit later. So in the 70s, this Jewish anthology of fantasy and science fiction came out, Wandering Stars. And in this book, we find a sort of ambivalence about Zionism, if not pessimism. So we have Jews imagining that the state of Israel as it exists now did exist, it fell apart, and then there was a third exile to Venus. So Jews are sort of ghettoized in Venus. The aliens are their comrades. Zionism becomes a thing again, and there's a neo-Zionist convention, and they talk about going back to Earth and to live in the land of Israel, to end this quote unquote third exile. So what's really interesting about this is just one of the stories in the piece, but what is interesting about this is the way in which they actually mythologize the land of Israel as we know it now, quote unquote Israel, so-called Israel, in the same way that many Jews mythologize the land of Israel pre-exile, in the current moment that we live in. Ultimately, the sort of message that we come away with from the stories in this book is that homogeny is bad, ethnostates not good, and that really we should embrace diaspora across not only the world internationally, but also across planets and species. Yeah, and then we also have this book. I think it was written in 2007, if I'm correct. Forgive me if I misquoted that. It's called Palestine Plus 100, and it's a collection of sci-fi pieces written by Palestinians, imagining 100 years after the Nakba. For example, you have stories in which Israel now not only controls the land and the water, but they control the oxygen. You have stories about a now liberated Palestine, in which Palestinians start to realize that something's off and that it's actually a simulation, Zionist simulation, in order to further subjugate Palestinians. Yeah, and then you also have a story in which it is illegal for Palestinians to engage with the past at all or to write about the past. And we see that even happening in this moment, in which the Israeli state is actively destroying museums and archives. And we also see our own Yiddish institutions, ones that maybe we previously trusted, maybe we didn't, but also propagandizing and twisting history. So both of these collections are super relevant. I think we should all read them. I haven't actually read them yet. I've only done research on them. So maybe there's a future event, book club or something, in which we can all talk about these in more detail. Yeah, and I'm just going to read you this small quote from the book because I think it really sorry, not from the book, from an article by Daniel Lubin on Vashti Media. This is where I found out about all this. The article is called Strangers in a Strange Land. I think somebody's going to pop it into the chat. The subtitle is Jewish Sci-Fi, Afrofuturism, and Visions from Palestine. It was written in 2021, still super relevant. And this is sort of the summarizing quote. The horrors of Palestinian sci-fi rebut utopian fantasies of a Jewish future predicated on Zionism. The 2048 of Palestine plus 100 contests the imagined future conjured by utopian Zionist writers by pointing to a century of oppression. The anxieties of exile that riddle wandering stars undermine Zionism's capacity to stabilize Jewish life. Instead, the stories advocate for an inclusive Jewishness that embraces the other, the alien, in much the same way that Alt Nieuweland dreams of civic equality, but in this case, dispensing with the need for a nation to reach utopia. So yeah, I just wanted to share that little crash course um, with you all. Yeah, I also wanted to mention, as I sort of mentioned before, that Zionism was only one vision of the future. As the Jewish surrealist artist Claude Cahun and also Nazi resistor said, there are as many ways of being as stars in the sky. So in this slide, I have a bunch of posters of sort of other visions of what Jewish life could look like. So I have the classic poster from the Jewish Labor Bund, who talk about Doigkeit, here-ness, the idea that as Jews, wherever we live is our home. Of course, this becomes more complicated when we think about settlerhood, and there's a lot more to reckon with, but I still think it's a beautiful idea for the future and also for diaspora Judaism or Jewish culture. Here we have a little picture from Moshe Altshuler's Kosmolisha Haggadah, written in 1922. This is a Haggadah where instead of next year in Jerusalem, they imagine next year a world revolution. I also have a poster advertising Biro Bijan, which was the Jewish autonomous zone that was basically a piece of land that bordered on Siberia that Soviet Russia, I guess, declared for a short time was the Jewish state. It ended up being a failed project, but it was one vision. Autonomism is what it was. So the idea that multiple ethnicities could live in one nation state, but each sort of ethnicity or cultural group would be autonomous over their culture. And have their own parliament. So that was Bijan. It does still exist. The national language is still Yiddish. However, there are very few Jews there. And then this last poster, I just thought it was funny. It's from a 22 Yiddish paper, and it was actually a competition for people to write a story about interspecies love. But hey, maybe that's also our future. That could be amazing. Okay. Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, now for the more fun part. Yeah, I wanted to talk about some Jewish DIY interventions into the future. I think I'm sort of stretching the term DIY a bit here, but I wanted to talk about the Paper Brigade. The Paper Brigade was a group of Jews who were in the Vilna Ghetto during the Holocaust. They essentially were working for a Nazi division that wanted them to gather Jewish materials. They were essentially looting Jewish museums and archives so that after the Jews were exterminated, they could study the Jewish question. So pretty awful stuff. But these folks, what they did was they smuggled books and other written materials, and they buried them in the ghetto and were able to actually find them again, those who survived after World War II. So I think the idea of this is amazing. The idea that of course, there were people smuggling food and all these other things to survive, but there were also these people who were smuggling books and ideas for us, for the future, and that was even possible is pretty incredible. Um, Another really DIY endeavor at this time from 1943 to 1945 is Kurt Bloch's Underwater Cabaret. Fragel actually told me about this, so I can't take credit. But Kurt Bloch was a German Jew who was hiding in the Netherlands. And while he was in hiding, he put out this zine. He actually put out 95 issues called The Underwater Cabaret. And underwater in Dutch was a play on the term diving under, which was the Dutch term for people who had to go into hiding. And it's really incredible because yes, Block made these zines himself, but it took a whole community for him to actually get the materials to make this zine. So people were smuggling him glue, pens, newspapers, other printed materials in order to actually document what was happening through his zine, and also in order to spread it. So the collection of 95 zines was spread just slowly, one to one, and he actually survived, and he was able to get back all the copies, and a website that is translating all of his works into English and showing all of his zines is actually going to be up on February 8th, so super soon. Really exciting. Um, uh-oh. Oh, yes. I just wanted to share this as well. This is his last zine. It's called Above Water as opposed to Underwater. And I thought that this was a really relevant and nice quote from a poem that he wrote. So perhaps at some point in the future, the poems in your tongue I composed will be brought to your notice. And if so, to delight will I then be disposed. Um, yeah, and the question I'm asking is our present delight, perhaps at seeing this, or at least my present delight, I hope you're delighted. Can we call that a mini utopia? Um, yeah, I guess for me, what's important is thinking about not only these big visions for the future, but thinking about small acts that sort of snowball into perhaps a utopia or some better version of the future, or perhaps even just more relational acts, or sort of reaching into the future to to give to give future people, future beings, some sense of joy. So in line with that, I wanted to just read you Jenny Romaine, who is this amazing rad Yiddish theater maker. Many of you, I'm sure, already know her work, but she talks about the compressed power of the miniature. She talks about it specifically in terms of puppetry, but the idea that when you shrink something down, you can make it small and you can make it approachable. So when we talk about the future, which seems super big, and the idea of coming up with future possibilities, we can shrink it small and perhaps approach it more easily. And I think that's exactly what we're actually going to be doing today, right? We're taking zines, and we're doing a single page zine, one piece of paper, and we're sort of folding it up and creating some perhaps pocket manifesto, some seed for the future, or a small act of just hopeful beauty. Yeah. Thank God I'm done talking, basically. I just wanted to open it up now. I have some questions here, but I think instead of having them up, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm just going to open up the floor. I would love to hear your general thoughts about everything I've just sort of word vomited at you. Um, and yeah, maybe I'll just say some of the questions to sort of mull over right now. But something I was thinking about is like, okay, there are all these Jews in the past who are imagining a utopia that, as we see now, has turned out to be a dystopia. So, how do we imagine utopian worlds without creating dystopias for others? Um, Yeah, and also sort of in line with the theme of this whole workshop. How does the past help us envision alternate futures? And a smaller question is, what from this present moment would you be delighted for some? What message from this present moment would you be delighted for some future being to receive? And also, yeah, what small acts could tumble into a utopian future? Yeah, truly, any thoughts about everything I just said? Would love to hear. So I'll just stop sharing and open it up, and you can either unmute and just talk or put up your hand, whatever, doesn't matter.
This is Bagel speaking. I just want to suggest maybe if you could pop the questions in the chat.
Yeah, I definitely can.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Will this work? Yes. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I know it's a big group, but feel free to unmute, or if you want to put up your hand, I can call on you.
I don't think we see the questions yet. You might have DM'd them to someone.
Oh, I did. Okay. There we go. Oh, yeah, Emily Zimmerman.
Hey there.
Okay.
Just to get the ball rolling, I'm thinking about the small acts that create the utopian future. And in my work as a food artist and food justice activist, I've always held that the Seder is an incredibly powerful healing ritual, and
Hmm.
just the act of sharing food with people around the same table is itself a ritual that heals and builds community. And I'm so freaking tired of Zoom Seders. Um,
Yeah.
and I've kind of stepped back, this one notwithstanding, from uh too much onlineness, because what I really, really want in my future, in my utopian future, is person to person contact.
Hmm.
And it's community building, person to person contact. Um, and if I can get nerdy on the subject for a moment, I've been reading a Walter Benjamin essay about it's like an early 30s of like, how is art going to change now that we have reproduction and we can reproduce works of art, which is very timely
Hmm.
subject right now. And what he's talking about is like, well, when there's a film, the audience is no longer empathizing with the character, they're in the role of the camera. There's
Hmm.
a level of depersonalization beyond the obvious. So yeah, less depersonalization, more dinner parties. That's what I want.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I love like yeah, also just like yeah, what you're saying in terms of the sensory, right? Like the sort of groundedness that we get from like the taste of yeah, an item from the Seder plate or
Mm.
um yeah, the feeling of somebody's skin just or whatever collective warmth. Yeah, that's
For sure.
awesome.
And it's not like I agree with with people in chat. The pandemic is not over, but we also have to figure out how we can take care of our souls and our connections with each other. And that might be, again, doing things on the computer. It might be meeting in the park. It might be sending things in the mail, which is super fun. But
Yeah,
maintaining those connections that keep us going however we can.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, Sierra. Thank you, Emily. Oh, yep.
Sorry. I always have to find all the little buttons. Um, First of all, thank you so much for that crash course. I really, I knew there was going to be like build up, but I didn't know what it was going to be, and that was excellent. Um, And then I was really struck by your kind of wrap-up section, and the questions that you posed. Is our present delight a mini utopia? And is our delight a small taste of utopia? Um, I really was struck by those. I thought those were beautifully posed questions, that really played around with the like timey-wiminess of futurism,
Mm,
especially of like retrofuturism. I thought that was so fun. Um, and kind of was considering that along with the other question you posed, what message from the past would be delightful for some future being to receive.
mm,
It just makes me think so deeply about so many of the things I've received from the past,
mm,
whether that's directly through people or like finding them in my physical reality or whatever. Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful and was very inspirational for zines. I've always had the kind of opposite issue though with zines. That small space feels like such a big space. And that's always been
yeah.
kind of my artistic block with them. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I hope we can, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more when we actually get into the crafting of them. I think like the sort of conceptual possibilities for just like the way that the single page zine actually functions. Um, but yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah, Dvoira. Go for
Hey,
it.
um,
Hey.
I'm grateful for this. I'm wondering if in your research if you came across like anything that can inform us with the actual like physicality of the zine design. I mean, like I saw the
Mm,
slides of what you had, but yeah, what were people in our past doing about the future,
mm,
like design wise, like or one page or whatever,
mm,
just all of that. Yeah. And how to make it like accessible, like financially for like we're working class people making like zines about the future.
mm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said with Kurt Block, like obviously there were constraints there, and so the way that he was able to make his zines was like truly a community effort, which I find really fascinating. Like, of course, I think most of us can sort of go out to Dollarama and get some paper and some like pen and glue or whatever, but like this person literally had to have people like at high risk smuggling him magazines and glue and pen and scissors and whatever. So I mean, I think for me at least, and this is not really answering your question, but like it makes me sort of not take the process for granted to sort of like approach it, knowing that people struggled greatly to make something like this. Um, but yeah, I guess I mean, yeah, I've seen many things like, with Claude Cahoon, for example, the way in which they sort of collaged a lot of collage, I would say. Also, there's Joe Fishstein, who was this working class person who was a Jewish immigrant, I believe, to New York, but he had this huge collection of Yiddish poetry and literature. And what he did is that he didn't actually alter the contents of that, but he beautified the covers. So I think that's also like a really beautiful, in a way, hopeful act for the future people who found that. But yeah, maybe this is a good moment to sort of get into my thinking around the single page zine itself and why I think it's like kind of particularly helpful for this visioning, which is that like when you so this is a single page, and can you see this? I'm just gonna do my self view so that I can. But yeah, so you have this like single page zine, right? And you have all of these tiny little um, sections. But of course, you can also open it up and then you have like a poster, right? And so I was thinking, like, this is just me sort of riffing and like, you know, off the top of my head, but I think that like what's cool is like, you know, also when we think about those futurists of the past when they imagine Zionism, I think they were very much sort of metaphorically imagining Zionism like this, as opposed to the sort of big picture that we have, sort of like the poster. So something I wondered is if when we're constructing these zines, you know, maybe we start off making the small picture, but what happens when we open it up as a poster? Does something different happen? Does it tell us something different about the future or like warn us in some way? So I thought that that was something maybe within the sort of mechanics of the zine that we can play with conceptually. Yeah, that's all I got for you.
I love that, Jess. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say what small acts create your utopian future. Being here for me as well, you know, like participating in things like this, especially because in Melbourne at the moment, obviously like there's a genocide happening and everyone's dealing with a lot, but there's just been this like uncovering of a big Zionist WhatsApp group chat in Melbourne, with like 600 kind of creative industry people, basically
Whoa.
docs, not only Arab, but like Black and Indigenous artists and writers in Melbourne. And it's just come out in the past week. And so it's so nice to be in a group of creatives where I don't have to think, shit, is this person like
Wow.
potentially wanting to dox me, you know? Anyway, that's very by the by, but grateful to be here.
Oh, that's so real, and I'm sure like relatable for a lot of people here right now. Thanks for sharing that, Necha. Fragel, maybe can we do a time check? Like, do we have time for a couple more people to share?
Yeah, I think you wanted to start the zines around 8:20, so sounds good.
Great. Yeah, about 5 minutes. Yeah, maybe if like two or three more people want to share, go for it.
Hi, Jess. I can share. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hi, Jess.
Hi. This is such a cool project and cool workshop, so thank you so much. My name's Jess Abel, she or they, and this is particularly personal to me at the moment, just considering futures. I actually, I'm sharing this in this large group format, but I actually haven't told very many people that I'm pregnant. And
God,
so,
good.
but I was just thinking like about like, you know, the future is so abstract. And then all of a sudden it's actually, thank you, Abby, but it's all of a sudden something that's so relevant to our families and to people we love and to our communities. So just like the presence of the future in the or the present, yeah, the present of the future in the present, but
Yeah.
is so very real. And without being able to imagine a different future, it can be really bleak and dark. So it is this capacity to be resilient, I think. And so I think it's such a particularly good time just to try to imagine something different, and not imagine something different to escape or to get away from the realities of what is, but to really give a possible outcome, or like to think about how we're getting from here to somewhere else, and practically, even like in a pragmatic kind of like imagination pragmatism, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Oh my God, Jess, Mazel, that's awesome.
Thank
And
you so much.
Yeah, it makes sense that that's like even more pressing. The future is like, yeah, the future is sort of here. It's in your body. Like that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like relevant. I mean, if we look at the turn of the century and sort of like the beef between like the Jewish Labor Bund and the Zionists is that, the Bund were like, Stop, imagining sort of escaping to this place that we're actually not that familiar with. Like let's do something here in the now. So yeah, thank you for bringing that all in. Um, okay, who has their hand raised here? Oh no, I just saw it. Oh no. I think somehow I lost.
Hi,
Yes, just go for it.
hi. I'm Nish. I am so grateful to hear that good news, Jess. Thank you for bringing the generations in because I wanted to talk about the first question you posed, Jess.
Mm,
How do we resist imagining worlds utopian for some and dystopian for others? That's been like my family's central struggle, I feel, in so many
mm,
ways. And like that, again, that like making it small scale felt very appropriate in that conversation too. And I'm patrilineal for whatever that matters or doesn't. And seeing my father embrace Christian Zionism while my
mm.
grandfather was just a poor working class, like union guy who was like, what happened? like, and
Yeah.
like the concept of things skipping generations was something I heard so much as a child that I really found I am finding some wisdom in. So I just wanted to offer that, like the way that there spans generations, I think is part of that conversation, right? So whatever links we're able to find and hold on to, I find are helpful in like, well, what forces have my ancestors already been working towards against, and what's that mean? So uh just offering that again, bringing the generations in. Thank you.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. I've heard like certain sort of rad archivists use the term like preservation through use. And I think that's like a really amazing, yeah, amazing way to think about the past and think about the past as a blueprint. A cautionary blueprint, also a hopeful blueprint for the future. Because, yeah, I mean, so many of our ancestors were resisting white supremacy, racism, xenophobia, colonialism, classism, all of this stuff, right? So there's a lot to learn there for sure. Yeah, thank you, Nish, for bringing that in. Camilla or Kamala? Go for it.
Camila.
Camila.
But I prefer the Kamala mispronunciation. If people do mispronounce my name,
Nice.
because Kamala Shamsi is kind of awesome. Anyway, yeah, I was also thinking about the I've been really actually struggling with that. Like, how do we make sure that what we are driving towards is a betterment? Because so many people, especially right now, are certain that the state of Israel is our utopia. Um, and I'm like, but how? Like honestly, it breaks my brain to think, how are you not noticing the thousands of people who are dying for your utopia? And so it has been occurring to me that while I feel very clear-headed about this, that doesn't mean that I or anyone for that matter can be clear-headed about things like this always. Like it doesn't mean. And so how do we stop that from happening? How do we not develop something that seems awesome, except it's founded on the backs of people who are dying or being severely exploited for it. And I don't have like necessarily a prescription for it, but I do have two ideas, which are I find that if we read like old utopias, we can really easily pick out what is wrong with them. Like Herland or the Daughters of the Coral Dawn. Like those were books where like if you read them, especially some years after, you're like, oh wow, there's a lot wrong here that you may not have thought of.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that can basically be like fictional mistakes can help us prevent us making those mistakes, right? You need to learn from others' mistakes because you will not live long enough to make all of them yourself. So I love the idea of like learning from fiction. Like, okay, we see the mistakes that they made, let's not make the same ones. And then the other thing that occurs to me is that in general, of all the like utopias I see out there, like of all the times when people try to like center and make a space center a particular group of people because of marginalization and oppression and whatever, the place where I found that fails the least is when we center disabled people, for what that's worth. So that's what I'm also thinking about. Like, what if we thought of a Jewish utopia that centered disabled people? What would that look like? How likely would that be to fail, and how likely would it be to fuck someone else up? So those are just my two thoughts on it with no actual prescriptions.
Yes, yes, yes. I love all of that. And just like, yeah, I think like realizing sort of like the sort of humility with which we sort of have to approach this, right? And like knowing that like, yeah, we're flawed, we're gonna make mistakes, and like even in some ways, like to imagine that we're capable of imagining a utopia is in some way sort of like maybe arrogant, but I mean I still think a useful exercise, but like we have to imagine and we have to dream, but also, yeah, centering disabled folks, who I think, are just so ahead of the game in terms of creating communities of care. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, I really appreciate this discussion. Thank you everyone for sharing. I think we should get into it. So I am I'm gonna make sure, does everybody have a piece of paper, some kind of sort of art making or like writing utensil, and then also scissors? I'll give folks just like, yes, a minute or two to get the supplies. Also, thanks for participating in the chat so much. I wish I could engage with it more. All right. Of course, I can't see everyone, but I'm hoping that you all have a piece of paper now. Okay, so you have your piece of paper. What you're gonna do is you're gonna fold it once, and make sure as much as you can that the oh yes, thank you for zooming me. Make sure that like as much as you can that the corners are aligned here, just because it might not fold as correctly if you don't. So yeah, so once you folded it once, so you folded it sort of lengthwise, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna fold it again lengthwise and do exactly the same thing with the corners aligning. And feel free to interrupt me anytime if you have any questions or you're not caught up. So you should have sort of like a little booklet so far. And then you're gonna flip it again lengthwise and fold it one more time. So yeah, you should have something like this. Perfect. Okay, just want to make sure everybody's caught up. Lovely. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna unfold it. So you have this, you have the folds, and then you're gonna fold it again, but you're gonna fold it hot dog style. So like this. Or nope, I'm wrong. I've led you down the wrong path. You're gonna fold it hamburger style. So you'll have 4 of these like this. Perfect. And now what you want to do is you want to take your scissors and you want to make sure that the side that is pointing up that you're cutting down is the part that's folded over. So you don't want to be cutting down the part that opens up, but the part that is folded over and that you can't open. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut all the way down just to the middle. So you're not going to cut to the end, but just to this middle part. So I'll show you. So what you want is you want these sort of flaps. Nice, I'm seeing the flaps. And let me know if anybody is confused by this. Yeah, Emily, you got it right. Nice. Amazing. Okay, so once you have the flaps, now we're gonna open it up again. And now we are actually gonna fold it hot dog style. So you have this, as Emily was doing, you can sort of peek through it, and then you fold it down. So you have this lengthwise. And then you're gonna you're gonna pinch the two panels at the end, and then you're gonna press both sides into the middle so that it kind of creates this diamond. This is what's happening here. And then it kind of then just naturally all folds into a booklet. Is anybody having a problem with that? Okay, sweet. Okay, so now we have the booklet. Yeah, sometimes what I'll do is I will number each page and then open it up so that I can see the order of the pages, but it's just easier to draw on it when it's not the little booklet. Or you could just draw on each page like this, or you could open it up into a poster, do the poster form first, and then see what happens when you fold it back. So it's totally up to you. But yeah, like I was saying before, I encourage you to think of this as some kind of futurist technology that we can play with. Yeah, think about yeah, maybe the small acts of the future that then when we open it up tumble into the bigger future. Yeah, and I guess so what do we have? We have about a half an, no, do we have? Oh yeah, Dwyer, go for it.
At first I was too embarrassed, but then I saw some other people might be having the same problem. So
Yeah.
what is the very last
Yes, okay.
thing?
Yeah, so okay, I see that you have it correct. So you have this, but then you're just gonna fold it down so you have like almost like a hot dog bun shape. Yeah. And then if you pinch the sides, just like you're doing now, and then you're gonna press into the middle. So it just sort of creates this booklet once you press it into the middle. See? Yeah, so now you fold it. Like if you just fold it like this, then you should have a booklet. Is that working for you?
Yeah, how many separate flat pages do you have?
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Great. So yeah, now it's kind of like it's up to you. I'm gonna softly play a klezmer playlist to accompany us whilst making. But feel free to mute it if you want. If you're not into music, and you can mute me, play your own music. And also feel free to like unmute and chat. That's cool too. I'll try to. Oh, bye, Necha. Thank you for coming. But yeah, I'll put the music on sort of more quietly. And we have about 20 minutes. Thank you, Fragel. Yeah, so 20 minutes of making. Here we go. Can you hear this music? Nice. Okay. Sweet.
So I'm sure everyone got really into working on their zine, and you can definitely keep working on it on your own time. But what I would love to do is take a group photo with all our works in progress. Very optional. You don't have to show your face or your work if you don't want to. But yeah, it definitely can be a work in progress. Mine definitely is. I have a couple little drawings that I started. So if you want to be in this fun photo and fold something up, I will just give folks another minute here on the screen. Um,
Wow. Oh my God.
this
People's
is
looks so amazing.
so
Sorry.
cool, so cool. All right, I think I grabbed a few screenshots there. Oh, a couple more people showed up. Still more. Okay, I'll wait a few more seconds. We want you all in the photo. Oh, more people. Oh my gosh, amazing. Okay, I've got some screenshots.
Yay.
I'll pass it back to Jess to wrap us up before final announcements.
Thank you for being so into this, everyone. Also, I was looking through the chat, and Leora made the good point that Zionism wasn't really Yiddish futurism, and I think that is a really good point. And I'm realizing retrospectively that I was conflating Yiddish futurism to Jewish futurism because, in fact, Herzl's book was in German and Levinsky's was in Hebrew. So thank you for that important clarification. And yeah, I'm wondering if anybody wants to like say a bit about the zine that they've already started making. I just want to give 5 minutes for that. Yeah, Robin?
Yeah, hi. One of my friends, one of my housemates wrote, we have a big chalkboard, and she the other day wrote the entirety of Wendell Berry's poem Manifesto, and it's just really been sitting with me. And so I wrote here my favorite line from it, which is do something that won't compute. And it's my attempt to draw a person dancing on top of a car, but it's just I just really love that idea of doing something that won't compute.
Whoa, I love that. Yeah, that's an amazing sentence and deeply inspiring sentence. Jay.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I was raised in a Hasidic Jewish community, and so a lot of my deconstructing has been trying to figure out like the parts of like the culture that I connect to. And so I wrote my zine and I titled it Zwischen Alts in Gunish, between everything and nothing.
Wow.
And I'm really trying to figure out, how I can connect to our history and to Jewish tradition in a way that is different than how I was raised. So thank you.
Wow, that's beautiful. Between everything and nothing. It almost feels like yeah, like some kind of cool play on like the Dybbuk between worlds. But it also feels like, yeah, wow, what a phrase for where we are right now and also for what it sounds like you are on your personal journey. Thank you. Alana.
Hello, can everyone hear me? I wrote a tiny zine, which is very incomplete, called Gewixen and Goles, which is plants in diaspora, and it's a zine idea that I've been working on for a long time, but haven't actually like sat down to write things for. So maybe you can see my little. I'm not exactly good at art, let alone botanics, but it's a project to sort of like look at indigenous languages that are local to the area and use those languages to come up with Yiddish names for those plants rather than trying to borrow from European languages that don't have the same kind of history. So this is specifically drawing from Lushutzid, which is native to the Seattle area where I am currently. And so for an example, I have a salmonberry here, known in English, but the Yiddish approximation of the Lushutzid name is stegwad. And that's my zine.
That's incredible. That's so cool. I actually know somebody here who's trying to do a similar thing. So I should connect you two. You can email me
Yeah,
after.
I can send you my email.
Wow, I love that. Amazing. Thank you. Let's see. I think Sierra, you've had your metaphorical hand up for a while.
Okay. So I really liked your question, of course, about like delight for the future and delight in the present, as utopian. So I made like it's a small delight for the future. I don't speak Yiddish very well, but it's like a kleine something. That's the part I know, in Yiddish is small. And then so it's from right to left in Yiddish and left to right in English. And it just says peace, health, and blessings to you. This token, thank you. And then it starts again in Yiddish. And I like copied some coins and used some stickers I had. I had this tiger that's a walrus, and these beluga whales. And then I like traced some of my jewelry and I hope that it's something cute.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. That's extremely cute.
Just in the interest of time, I know a lot of folks have their hands up, but we're gonna start wrapping up. If folks want to stay after the official close, maybe we'll leave the room open a little bit longer. But yeah, we want to respect people's time, and also our cart captioner. So I just want to give a couple announcements of our upcoming events. In just over 2 weeks from now, on Tuesday, February 20th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're gonna have a radical Yiddish poetry reading and discussion led by Anita Norwich, who is one of my Yiddish literature teachers. And I'm very, very excited that she's coming to do a rad Yiddish event with us. And then a few weeks later, on Monday, March 11th, also 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we are going to have a Radical Yiddish Zingerei, which is a singing circle. Linda Gritz and Polly Katz of the Boston Worker Circle. I'll just put their names in the chat. They are going to lead us in some songs, line by line, and also teaching the history of some of these songs. And if you think that you know all the usual suspects of Lefty Yiddish songs, these are going to be less common ones. So if you came to this event with Linda and Polly a couple years ago, they're going to do some deeper cuts of Lefty Yiddish songs. And then we also have a Purim event planned, date TBD, but a lot to look forward to. So if you're on our mailing list, you're gonna get all those links and hear all about it. I want to give such a huge round of applause to Jess Goldman. Thank you so much for leading us in this workshop. I learned so much from you today. Thank you all for coming. Again, if you're able to send some donations our way, if you enjoyed your time today, Asa has put those links in the chat, and we will see you all at next event. Thank you so much.